that the virtual sitting constitutes a sitting of the National Council of Provinces, and that the place of the sitting is deemed to be Cape Town, where the seat of the National Council of Provinces is. In addition, honorable members, in addition to the rules of virtual sitting, that is, the rules of the National Council of Provinces, including the rules of debate, apply. And delegates should know that anything said to everyone via the chat screen is deemed to have been said in the House and may be ruled upon. This is just to remind members to be mindful of what they say all the time. Delegates enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Council of Provinces. And for the purpose of the crime, for the purpose of the quorum, all delegates who logged in shall be considered to have been present. So please, honorable members, ensure that you have been logged in properly. For the duration of the sitting, delegates must mute their microphones unless if they wish to speak. Any delegate who wishes to speak should use the raise your hand function. And members have been properly alerted to this, and they're familiar with raise your hand function. And delegates are also reminded to please keep their videos on for the duration of the sitting. We will then move on, honorable members. So all the honorable delegates, I will now allow an opportunity to delegates to give notices of motion, and there are 20 minutes in total for notices and motions without notice. I'm informed that Honorable Z.V. Ngita would like to give a notice of motion. So Honorable Ngita, you may now proceed. And any other delegate who wishes to give notice of a motion should use the raise your hand function now. Honorable Ngita. So we note Honorable Dango, Honorable Arnolds, and Honorable K. Mwima. But let's start with Honorable Ngita.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
We start with Honorable Ngita, Honorable Dango.
Okay.
Is Honorable Ngita there? If she's not, then we start with Dango.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I rise on behalf of the African National Congress and to move a motion without notice that the Council notes with the utmost sadness and grief the untimely death of Comrade Ignatius Jacobs, who served the people of Gauteng in various capacities, including serving in the Gauteng provincial government as the MEC for Education, MEC for Social Development, and MEC for Transport, amongst many other responsibilities placed upon his shoulders. Comrade Ignatius Jacobs was a fearless cadre who belonged to the young lions of the generation of the 1980s, an underground operative of Umkhonto Sizwe who served the ANC and the Alliance with selfless dedication and courage throughout his life. Takes this opportunity to convey his heartfelt condolences to the Jacobs family, especially to his wife Amelia, his children Olivia, Kayleen, and Ernesto. I so move, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was a motion on Honorable Ignatius Jacobs, known to many as Nash. No, thank you very much for the motion, Honorable Dango.
Sorry, Chair, before we carry on, are we busy with motions with notice or without?
Without.
Without notice. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yes. Honorable Labuskachne, let's note what we are saying. We have continuously raised the issue, dear colleagues and honorable members, about the difference between the motions, and I would just urge that the political parties really spend time training and retraining their members so that we don't experience some of the minor issues that tend to arise every time this matter is on the table. We're dealing with notices of motions, and we'll deal with motions without notice soon thereafter. I was told that Honorable Nita was going to give notice of a motion. Honorable Nita is not here. Can I find out once again if Honorable Nita is there?
Chairperson?
Yes.
This is
Now I'll come back to you, Labuskachne. Let's just sort out this question or this
That's what
issue.
for one other reason I can't raise my hand. Sorry, that's why I didn't put up my hand.
Yeah, just wait a minute. Is Honorable Nita there? I guess
it appears Honorable Nita is not in.
It's not there, and so
yes,
the issue therefore will not be entertained. So Dango has done
a motion without notice.
A motion without notice. Can we move on to the next motion? And the next motion is from Arnold.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of the economic freedom fighters, I hereby move that the House notes that since the country entered COVID-19 lockdown levels, there has been an increase in gender-based violence in the country. Noting and condemning the brutal and senseless spate of killings in the Eastern Cape, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and the Western Cape, that must be stopped collectively by our criminal justice system and all stakeholders. Further notes with regret and sadness the killing of a young mother named Alticia Korki, 27 years old, and her daughter Rainesia, 7 years old, at a house in Belha in the Western Cape. In welcoming the arrest of all perpetrators of gender-based violence, we call on the government to act swiftly and protect our women and children in the country. I so move, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Arnold.
My apology, I just sit down now.
Yes, we'll move on to, thank you very much. There being no objection to the motion, we'll move on to Honorable Moima.
Thank you, Chairperson. I rise on behalf of the African National Congress to move a motion without notice that the Council notes with the utmost pride and humility the appointment of Honorable Anele Proia as the Public Service Provincial Commissioner for the Northern Cape. Further, the Council to note that the Honorable Anele Proia, who was the Provincial Whip for the Northern Cape since the beginning of the term last year, also served as the Committee Whip for the Security Cluster in the NCOP. And furthermore, for the Council to note that it takes this opportunity to congratulate Honorable Anele Proia on his appointment and express our utmost appreciation for his service and commitment advancing the interests of the people of the Northern Cape in the NCOP. I so move, Honorable Chair.
No, thank you very much. Let's note that Honorable Goya is indeed no longer with us, and that being the case, indeed we take this opportunity to just emphasize that he served the NCOP very, very well. But having listened to the motion, I now put the question that this motion be accepted, and indeed if there are no issues, we'll move on. Saying that there's no issue and there's no objection. Seeing that there's no objection, we will then move on. The next motion will come from Honorable Nchabele. Nchabele?
Thanks, Chairperson. Honorable members, I rise on behalf of the African National Congress to move a motion without notice that the Council notes with utmost sadness and grief the death of Mr. Thabo Lucas Makunyane, who was a former member of the National Council of Provinces from Limpopo in the 4th Parliament. Further notes that Mr. Makunyane, who served the ANC and the people of South Africa with utmost dedication and humility, belonged to the generation of young people who, after 1976, laid a firm and solid foundation for intensifying the national call and boycott to overthrow the apartheid regime and usher in a new democratic rule in 1994. Further notes that Mr. Makunyane, who was among the most incisive and sharp-minded commissars of the Congress movement in Limpopo, served the Congress movement and the people of South Africa in various positions, including him having been a member of the NCOP in the 4th Parliament and the first executive mayor of Polokwane, and takes this opportunity to convey our condolences to the Makunyane family for their loss. I so move, Chairperson.
Yes, thank you very much. Thabo Makunyane, as we all know, is a very well-known cadre and was an honorable member of Parliament. So there is the motion. Is there any objection? And there being no objection, the motion is duly agreed to. The next motion comes from Baby from KwaZulu-Natal. Honorable Baby, your motion.
Thank you very much, Chair. I raise my motion without notice. I rise on behalf of the African National Congress to move a motion without notice that the Council, one, notes with profound sadness and a great sense of loss the death of the African National Congress member in the National Assembly from KwaZulu-Natal. Further notes that Honorable Dora Dlamini, who served in various committees in the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Legislature before joining Parliament after the general elections of 8 May 2019. She was a tireless servant who dedicated her entire life to serving the people of KwaZulu-Natal until her untimely death last week. And I take this opportunity to convey its heartfelt condolences to the Dlamini family, especially her children, for their loss. I so move, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bebe. That's a motion on Honorable Dlamini. The person Honorable Dlamini will then move on to putting the questions. Is there any objection? And there being no objection, the motion is duly adopted. Honorable Boshoff.
Thank you very much, Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move a motion without notice that this House notes with concern that over 50 schools in the province of Mpumalanga have not been able to open its doors to resume teaching. Further notes that these schools in the areas of Kabakweni, Pina, and Kanyamazan were not able to open due to the disruption caused by individual business owners. These business owners argued that they were overlooked by government when hiring companies to fumigate schools and provide other necessary related services, and further expressed their utter disgust in the manner in which the Provincial Education Department has been handling this issue, especially in light of the department hiring people from outside the province to provide the services which locals were able to offer. Recognizes that the Mpumalanga Education Department is therefore failing to assist in building the local economy, and lastly notes that under a DA government, the livelihoods of the citizens would be at the forefront and every necessary step would have been taken to ensure that local businesses are afforded the opportunity to conduct the necessary services required to ensure that the budget used for the exercise remains within the province. I so move.
There's the motion, honorable members.
Objection, Chair. Objection, Chair.
There being an objection, the motion will then come back to the House as an oral question. We will then move on to a motion by Honorable Mohai.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I move a motion without notice. I rise on behalf of the African National Congress to move a motion that notes with great sadness the death of Mr. Mike Mukwena, who was the chairman of the Free State Stars football club based in the Free State called Yalla Koto. Further knows that Mr. Mukwena, who was affectionately known as Bra Mike, founded Kwakwa Stars back in the 1970s in the small village of Makwani in Kwakwa. The club was promoted in the National Premier Soccer League in 1986 and maintained a presence in the league for many years. We also note that Bramike defied an apartheid laws to make available his offices for the use of the then South African Youth Congress activists in Botshabelo. Bramike made enormous personal sacrifices to give the people of Free State an opportunity to enjoy the beautiful game of soccer and literally put Kwakwa and the Free State province on the map, in addition to giving many young people in the province an opportunity to play at national and international level. This House takes this opportunity to express our heartfelt condolences to the Mokoena family, the football fraternity, and the people of South Africa for the loss. The South African football will never be the same again. I so move. Thanks, Chairperson.
Motion on the heartfelt condolence on the issue of Bramike, as was popularly known. So I put the question. Is there any objection?
No.
No. There being no objection, the motion is duly adopted. The next motion is from Boshoff. Honorable Boshoff.
Thank you very much, Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move a motion without notice that this notes, despite numerous requests to the Department of Human Settlements, Water and Sanitation, and COCTA, as well as the Tabacheo municipality, the quality and lack of service delivery in this municipality remains the same. Further note, the municipality is failing dismally in providing residents with the basic services as contained in the Constitution. Residents have for the past decade been exposed to the most inhumane living conditions due to constant sewer spillages and lack of water and electricity. Officials, senior management, and the political wing of the municipality keep acting like an ostrich with its head in the ground, hoping the problem will resolve itself. Recognizes that the ruling party on all three spheres of government do not have a solution to these problems, leaving the citizens to their own devices. Further recognizes that should nothing be done to assist the citizens of Tabacheo, civil cases could be opened, which could cost the municipality millions. And lastly, notes that under a DA government, the livelihoods of the citizens would be at the forefront and the necessary steps would be taken to rectify these problems to ensure a clean and healthy environment. I so move.
There's the motion for Honorable Boshoff on the Tabacheo municipality. Therefore, put the question. Is there any objection?
Objection.
There's objection. And therefore, the motion will now be converted into an oral question. Thank you very much. Honorable Klute is next. Is Honorable Klute there? No. That being the case, honorable members, we will now move on to the next item. Honorable delegates will now proceed to the order of the day, the debate on the appropriation bill B4-2020. National Assembly Section 77, ATC 15 June 2020, page 3. I now call upon Honorable Masangu, the chairperson of the Select Committee on Appropriation, to present the report of the Select Committee and open the debate. Honorable Masangu.
Malibongwe. 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 Malibongwe.
Yes, Honorable Masangu. On the debate on the appropriation bill, is Honorable Masangu connected?
I am connected, Chair.
Please.
Can you hear me, Chairperson?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. My apologies, Chairperson. Angilotshise kuwe sihlalo ngokuzithoba okukhulu ngilotshise kumalunga wonke akhona endlini. Ngilotshisa amalunga apermanent nama-special delegates abuya kuma-provinces nabantu bekhethu beSouth Africa. Angilotshise ngokuzithoba okukhulu nokuhlonipha umongameli wethu weSouth Africa ubabu Cyril Ramaphosa. Sithathe emagameni wakhe izolo njengoba asinikeze ipatkosi asinikeze umlayezo. It is my honor, Honorable Chairperson, and a privilege to table before this House a report on the 2020 Appropriation Bill on behalf of the Select Committee on Appropriations in the National Council of Provinces. I am happy, Honorable Chairperson, to report to this House that the committee has anonymously adopted the bill without amendment, while the DA reserved its right to adopt the bill, and the EFF, together with the Freedom Front Plus, did not support the bill. Honorable Chairperson, let us remember that when the bill was tabled, South Africa did not have a single COVID-19 case. We have reminded members when we were presenting the Division of Revenue Bill. Since the pandemic started spreading in our country and the president declared a national state of disaster, and the growth prospect of our economy has been revised downwards. Honorable members, let us always remember the message that has been given to us last night when the president was addressing the country. We together as a country, as active citizens, as responsible citizens, together with our government, together we can move South Africa forward. We can make things happen. I am also standing before you, South Africans, with a heart bleeding because of the scourge that we are seeing, because of the high level of the killings of women and children. It is with sadness that where do we expect our children and women to go if our men, who we expect to protect us, are the ones who are killing us? I'm just reminding members that we have to be responsible as public representatives. Honorable Chairperson and the members, on the 26th of February, we have received a letter from your good self with a letter from the minister requesting us to fast track the process of the budget. And because of the commitment that we have as a committee, we could not fast track or change the program that we had in terms of processing the Division of Revenue. But we were able to fast track the processing of appropriations bill, whereby we had joint meetings with the standing committee on appropriation from the NA. In all these processes, Honorable Chairperson and members and South Africans, we have made sure that everything and anything that is necessary in terms of the rules, the Constitution, the PFMA, the Money Bills Amendment and Related Matters Act have been followed to the latter. We made sure that asithathe ama-shortcut. Honorable members, let me add, Honorable Chair, that also the PFM have been taken into consideration when we were dealing with the processing of the appropriation bill. One important thing, Honorable Chairperson, which is next to our heart, which is something that we believe as public representatives that is very important, is core to our work, is public participation. We have made sure that on the 6th of May 2020, we have made a consultation with a number of organizations, individuals, and everybody who have made oral presentations, and some has made written submissions. And all that, honorable members, we have done in accordance with section 72, subsection 1B, A of the Constitution. We have made sure, Honorable Chairperson, that the decision and the recommendations that we are putting forward are informed by the public, because we understand that the decision and the recommendation that we are taking are representing the public, and the public have to have a say in overall. Honorable Chairperson, this bill, the bill provides a total allocation of 963.1 billion rands to budget vote 1 up to 41. Honorable Chairperson, the report has been ATC'd, it has been signed off, it has been agreed, and all other figures and other issues that has been discussed are in the report. For the members who are interested in looking into the report, as far as the issues and items that we have discussed, can do so. Allow me, Chairperson, to take this opportunity to focus more on the observation and recommendations of the committee. Whilst processing the bill, the committee observed and made the following recommendations. After gazetting the bill, the Minister of Finance should ensure that government departments spend such allocations according to approved plans and within the ambit of the clauses of the bill and other public finance management prescripts. That is the recommendation, and we are serious about it. That the Minister of Finance, together with other ministers, should ensure that proper governance system, fraud prevention mechanisms, and internal controls are put in place. We are tired of hearing about mismanagement and fraud and corruption. The Minister of Public Enterprises should submit an updated report to Parliament.
Remember, Mastangu, that we are left with about 2 minutes to conclude.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Implement the recommendations of the Presidential Review Report. Honorable members, we also recommend that the Minister of Social Development, together with the Minister of Finance, should explore how the current COVID-19 social relief of distress grant could be covered into the permanent social assistance grant for unemployed people between the ages of 18 and 38. In conclusion, Chairperson, while I could not get enough opportunity to finish my speech, Chairperson, let me quote, because this month is a youth month, let me quote the last word. As we've been celebrating Youth Day this week, there was a debate in the NA. Let us all of us recall the fallen young martyrs who died fighting for our freedom. Today, I dedicate this moment to Solomon Kalusha Mahlangu, who bravely faced the hanging noose of the apartheid regime at the tender age of 23. And he said, I open quote, "My blood will nourish the tree that will bear the fruits of freedom. Tell my people that I love them. They must continue the fight."
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Mahlangu. And I'm sure the words of Kalushi Mahlangu ring in our heads. The next speaker is going to be Honorable D.R. Ryder of the Democratic Alliance. Allocated time is 5 minutes. Honorable Ryder.
Thank you very much. And to the Deputy Minister, welcome. Thank you very much. And to our fellow South Africans. The budget currently under debate was presented at a time when South Africa was in serious trouble. Following the decade of rampant pillaging under the Zuma regime, we were facing an imminent downgrade by credit rating agencies. The country's growth was under pressure, with recession threatening, and the fiscus faced too many unnecessary demands. It seemed an impossible balancing act. Sadly, the response was an impossible solution. Well, the fact is that this budget is now just an exercise in theory, as we are set to pass it as a formality to be replaced almost immediately by an adjustment budget to address the Africa. And yet some of the principles behind this budget cannot go unchallenged. The budget did indeed address some of the key challenges facing our economy, and some good proposals for reduction in spending are included. Government proposed a much needed reduction in the public wage bill, but the reality is that COSATU was never...
Ryder, just a minute. I see the hand of Honorable Mtsamai is up. What do you want to rise on, Honorable Mtsamai? Honorable Mutsamai, your hand is up. Okay, Honorable Ryder, it doesn't seem like Mr. Mutsamai is there. Please proceed.
Hey,
Please proceed, Honorable Ryder.
The reality is that this party was never brought on board, and so the reductions in spending were really pie in the sky. This meant that the budget deficit was already set to worse than budgeted for, even before the national lockdown happened. Unmanageable debt burden was to be the solution. So the budget that we are debating today was really a bit of a Hail Mary budget. Some wishful thinking backed up by a plea to the heavens for intervention. The pandemic and worldwide reactions have caused an international recession, magnifying our own recessionary forces and creating a perfect storm to bring about what looks to be the worst economic contraction that this country has ever faced. So let's turn to the adjustment budget now, Deputy Minister. You're again faced with an immense challenge. With the already high unemployment set to almost double, revenue collection has tanked and the demand for government-funded assistance is soaring. This cannot just be a copy and paste with a few trims in some places and a plea to your preferred deity. Everybody is expecting the hatchet. Let it fall, Minister. You have the chance to reinvent government. Government needs to be materially rethought. The front line of service delivery, local government, is going to need considerably more assistance just to keep people's lives bearable. Already low collection rates have dropped further under lockdown, even in the best-run municipalities. Local government is where people rely on government for their most basic needs. The less than 9% allocation needs to be rethought, and local government also at the same time needs to be brought to heel to improve both governance and delivery. The minister said it himself, there's no money for failing SOEs. These entities must now either add to the fiscus or be cut. Vanity projects, failed political ideologies, and employment for the politically connected but otherwise unemployable are no longer possible. The millionaire managers and the productivity bereft head offices will need to be streamlined, and real, effective, and capable government needs to become the norm. For this, Deputy Minister must be what keeps us all up at night. The work that we do here, the work done by the executive, and especially the work done by the employees of the state, has a direct impact on the lives of real South Africans. The wasteful practices in government, the corruption, the poor value for money, the careless attitudes have a direct impact on the lives of those who need government most. So let's not squander this opportunity to reset. Minister, And Deputy Minister, the adjustment budget will go down in history no matter what happens. Either way, you now have the opportunity to make the best use of it and give South Africa a fighting chance. Revenue potential is severely depleted. The need for stimulus has already been acknowledged, but so far has been inadequate. Demands on health, security, government in South Africa has to change. Minister and Deputy Minister, this budget has become irrelevant in our new reality. Thankfully so, since it was built on impossible dreams and impractical demands from alliance partners who have too much power. While recognizing the importance of the process of passing this budget to get to an adjustment budget that can take South Africa forward.
Please round off, Honorable Ryder.
Contained in this budget and cannot support it in good conscience. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is going to be Honorable Tisi Dodovu from the African National Congress, allocated 10 minutes. Please proceed, Honorable China.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson of the House. Thank you very much, Honorable Members of Parliament, for giving me this opportunity. This debate on the Appropriation Bill this year takes place at a time when the entire global village is ravaged by the coronavirus called COVID-19. This is indeed a world-shattering pandemic with far-reaching consequences for humankind because it takes the lives of people, it disrupts their daily activities, it creates chaos in the financial markets, it wreaks havoc to the economies, and exposes the competencies of government across the world to deal with disasters. Under very difficult conditions occasioned by COVID-19, our government, led by President Ramaphosa, has demonstrated unflinching commitment and has provided leadership at the times of need by developing the best responses ever to save the lives of the people, to protect the economy, and to provide the poor people with social security support. As we navigate this uncharted path in mitigating the effects of this pandemic, we must know that the war against the invincible COVID-19 is a just war, and therefore no one must ideologize the drastic measures against COVID-19 because that will amount to trivializing the very interests of the poor. Today, Honorable Chair, as we consider the 2020 Appropriation Bill, we take this opportunity to wish President Thabo Mbeki, our former head of state, a happy birthday and many, many more returns.
Happy birthday, President.
Honorable Chair, the Appropriation Bill before us provides a total allocation of 963 billion rand to various budget votes, which include local government, which will be the focus of my debate today. As we meet today, we are the first to admit that the current state of local government leaves much to be desired. Many municipalities are in deep financial crisis, with more than 40 of them placed under Section 139 of the Constitution because they cannot fulfill their executive obligations. Over the last few years, Honorable Chair, it has been revealed that most municipalities are performing bad in terms of financial management, governance, and service delivery, while some have become agencies of unjust enrichment, vehicles of unrelented corruption, and progenitors of a system that is not tolerated at all. Also, Honorable Chair, the General has identified key problems that are
I'm trying to get in the. I'm not.
Honorable members, please stop what we are doing.
Can somebody please put
Tabai, order. Honorable Dove, please proceed.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I was saying that the Auditor General has identified the problems of deteriorating accountability at municipal level, with audit outcomes regressing caused by late submissions of annual financial statements, decreased unqualified opinions, and audit disclaimers that are increasing. The Auditor General has also identified lack of consequence management as a big problem in municipalities, because some municipalities are failing to implement audit outcomes. They are not investigating irregularities as requested, and the oversight bodies are not responding with the necessary speed and tempo in terms of dealing with the problems that are afflicting local government. And therefore, it is important that we need a paradigm shift, Honorable Chairperson, to deal with these particular problems. But these problems are also compounded by the fact that at municipal level, there are political infightings and interference, as well as the increasingly difficult environment for auditors to perform their independent functions. The above challenges are exacerbated by the increased dysfunctionality of our municipalities, the culture of non-payment, misalignment of legislation, as well as the ineffective role that is played by the provinces as well as the national government. Honorable Chair, we need to turn the tide. We need to turn the tide in order to ensure that local government remains a vanguard in our assault on poverty, inequality, and unemployment. As President Thabo Mbeki taught all of us, the one that we are celebrating his birthday today, our actions as local government should make an invaluable contribution to the important task of creating a humane society and a humane place where our people live. We must work selflessly for the betterment of local communities, where we fully understand that our responsibilities are to the people, and we are in every step of the way accountable, sensitive, and responsive to the needs of our people. In turning the tide, Honorable Chairperson, the government must adopt and implement a strategy that is underpinned by the district development model. This district development model must focus on key pillars that must ensure that we turn the tide at the end of the day. And these pillars must focus on good governance, on proper institutional arrangement, on creating the financial healthiness of the municipalities, of improving service delivery, as well as improving the necessary infrastructure for development. And that is quite important. But specifically in respect of this budget that we are discussing today, we must make sure that our financial sustainability become a thrust of what the municipalities are doing. And on that regard, the municipalities must focus on asset and liability management. They must focus on the culture of non-payment, because people need to pay for their services. They must focus on the expenditure management so that they manage their expenditure quite prudently. They must increase their revenue by developing strategies of revenue enhancements. And lastly, they must ensure that service delivery improves for the benefit of our own people. But equally important, Honorable Chairperson, we must develop an integrated and collaborative approach to development. And in this regard, the political consequence management must be a key feature in what we are doing. We must ensure that local government
as we move towards closure, Honorable Dodov, as we move towards closure.
Yes, I'm doing that,
please conclude, try to conclude.
As we debate this particular bill, we must do everything in our power to ensure that there is paradigm shift in terms of the finances of the municipalities, whereby the municipalities will embark on issues such as recovery of funds and ensure that at the end of the day, they deal with bloated political structure that restrain and strain the municipal budget as such. And at the end of the day, Honorable Chair, it is quite important that as we adopt, as the African National Congress, supporting the adoption of this appropriation bill, we must ensure that we move together to alleviate all the problems that are afflicting local government. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much.
Malibongwe.
Yes.
Next speaker is going to
Great time.
The Premier of the Eastern Cape.
Yes,
and
Premier.
6 minutes. Honorable Mabuyane.
Thank you very much, Honorable.
Malibongwe.
Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP, Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, the members of the NCOP, delegates and special delegates, good morning all.
Morning.
Something is not going right here. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, for affording us an opportunity to make our contribution in this debate of the 2020 Appropriation Bill. Firstly, Honorable Chair, allow us to welcome the leadership provided by the President in his yesterday's address, way forward address to the nation on COVID-19, as well as on gender-based violence and femicide. As patriots, we must all lend a hand in the fight against gender-based violence and this invisible enemy called COVID-19. From the onset, Honorable Chair, we want to record our full support to the Minister of Finance and his team as they spend sleepless nights crunching numbers to keep our country afloat and moving forward with its developmental agenda in these very tough, trying times. For instance, in our province, we have reprioritized our budget with the 207 million on the travel and subsistence budgets of all departments and allocated it to the Department of Health to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. This has been made possible by the fact that we experienced limited traveling during a lockdown. As the ferox survives in difficult environments, we too will overcome the current difficult challenges. We therefore support this appropriation bill. Honorable Chairperson, when this appropriation bill was planned and budgeted for, our equitable share component as a province was about 85 billion in the Eastern Cape. It represented a mere 4.6 percentage point of growth against the consumer price index, while other provincial equitable shares are above CPI. We want to record our unreserved discontent about this matter because it works against the developmental trajectory we are working on. We are henceforth calling for the finalization of the equitable share formula review process, which should take into account the cost of development in rural provinces to really advance the developmental agenda of our government, particularly huge infrastructure backlog. The other issue we want to raise, Honorable Chair, is the vertical funnel approach equitable share split between the three spheres of government. The people of South Africa, the masses who give us the mandate to govern on their behalf, live in a ward. A ward is in the municipality and the municipality is in a province. We want to raise the need for transparency in the allocation of resources for economic growth. In this regard, we are calling for a conditional grant that is allocated directly to provinces for economic growth initiatives, as currently provincial economic growth agenda is at the midst of national government department and SOEs. Chairperson, we also want to propose that as a country, we must breathe a new life to the district development model by legislating integration, planning, and budgeting for the three spheres of government through an act of parliament. This would guarantee our people's coordinated quality development. Lastly, Chair, we want to propose a reform on the matter of taking underspent money from one province to another. This money should be allocated to municipalities within a district in a province. Let us not punish our communities for the delays of municipalities in implementing their projects. We also call for a review on the matter of converting direct grants into indirect grants. This has a negative impact on the local suppliers as the contracts are sourced central, and this defeats the idea of local economic development that our government wants to achieve. In conclusion, Honorable Chairperson, I would like to leave you with words from one certain author, which he once said, and I quote, "Not all storms come to disrupt your life, some come to clear your path." Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much for the wonderful words. I like the spirit of positiveness. As they say, revolutionaries are ever optimistic. The next speaker is Honorable Meeko. Also allocated 6 minutes. Honorable T. Meeko.
Chair, thank you very much. As from the province of the Free State, we also want to join the Premier of the Eastern Cape and thank the opportunity to engage in this debate. Indeed, as a province, we also do support the Appropriation Bill. Chair, secondly, we want to move by commending the Minister of Finance and his team for coming up with a budget document under this difficult time when the economy is not performing well. And of course, other challenges which are imposing a very serious burden and complicating our situation. We wish to indicate that indeed our province is the hardest hit. We are rural. The majority of our people here are poor. And of course, continuously experiencing the highest level of unemployment. For us, Chair, the following issues remains a risk to the fiscus, although we welcome that the minister at some point has subsequently indicated that the special adjustment budget would be tabled to modify the current budget to provide for the rapidly changing economic conditions and enabling spending on the COVID-19 response, which we so much need as a province. We always argue that as a province, we're at the center of the country, and that reality imposes extra fiscal responsibility on our provincial fiscal capacity, including the fact that we are closer and near to another country called Lesotho. So one of the issues that we wish to raise is that compensation of employees' budget is concluded before the wage negotiations are finalized. And if government settles for a wage bill higher than the proposed COE budget, that will have a negative ability on us as government to deliver services. And as a result, we wish to submit that the national government, as part of many other mechanisms, should relook at its borrowing strategy. In our understanding, the current borrowing strategy is not yielding good results because we think that it is not sustainable. We've got to be able to opt for low-cost borrowing. And of course, our understanding is that it will help so that we don't overcommit as a country and save the strength of the rand. So the other point which we're passionate about, of course, as always as a province, is around municipalities. The funding for local government sphere, it's at 8%, and we think that it is also not sustainable. More and more of our municipalities are struggling due to low revenue base, and in the process are expected to provide sustainable services. And that's why, Chair, I want to move as a province to propose that there's got to be a study that will look specifically at the funding models of local government, especially the known rural small municipalities located in hopelessly impoverished and economically backward areas, which in the end borders on the ability of people to pay services because the high levels of unemployment. Second to that, Chair, as well as the reprioritization of local government is proposed, we think that it should not affect budget meant for provision of basic services like water and sanitation, infrastructure development, and maintenance, so that whilst dealing with COVID-19, municipalities must still be able to provide basic services to our people. The other point, Chair, is that we think that government should look at how it can provide services in a much more cost-effective manner. We wish to recommend, as a result, efforts towards shared services. And this, in our view, Chair, will be able to save small municipalities which almost are without capacity and because of the structural issues that we know. The point that we're indicating that is that there's no hope that we will ever resuscitate and be able to recover the challenges providing these municipalities. Chair, we also want to appreciate that the budget also indicates that at the provincial level, all healthcare budget should be protected and provincial treasury should put in place clear monitoring mechanism for expenditure and performance, and corrupt practices should be prevented at all times. Government should expedite the implementation of the national health insurance. We know it is since that time to be piloted and all of that. We've got to move, and this is our view. Chair, we also agree that and wish to advance that measures should be explored on how the current COVID-19 social relief of distress grant could be retained after the pandemic and be converted into a permanent social assistance grant for unemployed people. The details and feasibilities can be explored by relevant ministers. We think that this may provide a safety net for the poorest of the poor, even though it would not be enough. We know of that particular reality, but the details can be exhausted in how this cushion can continue to be exploited and save our people. The last 2 points here, we also agree with the observation that the pandemic has also necessitated a need to review some conditional grants and other line item expenditures in order to find funds to create a safety cushion for the poor and also stimulating economic growth. My province is the province of the poor, and our efforts alone as a province would not succeed. And that's why we would always call for national fiscal support. Chair, the last point, and want to join the Premier of the Western Cape, the point that we've been raising passionately and consistently. The basic service component is contained in the provincial equitable share formula should be reviewed in order to consider the burden on additional basic services that Free State Province renders. We urge you, Chair, that our province, the entire provincial equitable share formula should be reviewed in order to address the province-specific funding needs as a result of its transit status, that Free State is almost at the center of our country, and as a result, this has brought an overburden on our ability to provide services. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is going to be Honorable N. Gomorale Huku from the Gauteng province, MEC for Finance, 6 minutes allocated. Honorable Gomorale Huku.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Malibongwe.
Yo. Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. From the point of view of the programming and timelines of the work program of the NCOP and National Assembly, as Gauteng Provincial Government would like to welcome and to express our unqualified support for the 2020 Division of Revenue Bill that was tabled in Parliament by the Minister of Finance, Mr. Tito Mboweni, in February this year. The socio-economic and health devastation which impacted on and or visited upon our fiscal and monetary policy as a consequence of global public health emergency over the last 101 days of lockdown in our country requires of us to while we support the 2020 division, it will amount to intellectual bankruptcy if at the same time we do not fix both our eyes and our thinking into the interpretation of, and the meaning as well as the implication of the fiscal resources to mitigate health crises while reimagining our economy during the post-COVID-19. It is our firm view that the bill had eloquently factored in eminent downgrade by Moody's and thus strategically within a broader context had taken into account difficult fiscal environment ahead of us, which is characterized by a stagnant economy, dwindling revenue streams, and increasing demand for the service delivery from our people. As a result of this fiscal pressure, Honorable Chair, National Treasury revised the 2020 MTF fiscal framework and implemented budget cuts across all allocations to different spheres of government. As Gauteng, we have adopted the Growing Gauteng Together 20 plan to grow the economy and to create jobs. This plan is aligned to the National Development Plan of 2030, and its key priorities are as follows. The first one is economy, jobs and infrastructure. The second one is education, skills and healthcare. The third one is sustainable human settlements and new cities and land release. The fourth one is safety, cohesion, and food security, which is one of our critical areas in the province. Because, Chair, we've seen that with this COVID-19 lockdown, we've realized that there is a missing link in the province. There are people that are very poor, and the issue of food security, it's one of the areas that we want to emphasize on now. Sustainable future for all is one of the other areas that we are looking into in the province. We are building a capable, ethical, and developmental state. And the third one is building a better Africa and a better world. And I'm sure you, Chair, you will agree with me again, the issues of xenophobic attacks that have been in our province, those are the issues that we must make sure that we can tell them so that they don't continue in the province, because we have so many people that are coming from the province that are residing there, but we need to still take care of them as Africans. In line with the spirit of the national budget, Chair, that in these challenging economic times, we must do more with less. We therefore took tough decisions when we structured our 2020-2021 budget, Gauteng budget. We funded the priorities of the sixth administration as outlined in the GGT 2030 plan, implemented baseline reductions and reprioritization, while minimally impacting on service delivery, and directed funding to high growth sectors to stimulate the economy and create jobs. After the declaration of the national state of disaster by President Cyril Ramaphosa, and on advice by the National Treasury, we are working with the departments to repurpose conditional grants to support efforts in fighting COVID-19 pandemic. And in our province, we believe that we must repurpose aspects of following grants: is the National School Nutritional Program, Education Infrastructure Grant, Public Transport Operations Grant, Health Facility Revitalization Grant, HIV, TB, Malaria, and Community Outreach Grant, the National Tertiary Services Grant, and Early Childhood Development Grant. And we need again to redirect these funds to COVID-19 related support within the respective sectors. And again, Chair, the other area that we don't want to overlook in the province is the issue of the municipalities. We have those municipalities in the province, especially your districts, as you know, because you reside in the province, that are really now in their bellies, and including some of the local municipalities that still need our assistance as a province. But we believe that we have to relook into that and come up with proper plans of assisting all those municipalities that are in the province that are struggling up to so far. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Ngomarela Huko. I'll now hand over the chairing to Honorable Lucas. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. Honorable Ngwenya. Honorable Ngwenya, please proceed, Honorable Ngwenya.
Thanks, Chairperson. I'm in.
Yes. The next speaker is speaker number 7, Mfaela.
Thanks, Chairperson. The next speaker is S.E. Mfaela from Inkatha Freedom Party. Over to you, Baba.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable members, in these dire financial times worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic, we have to urgently recommit to the constitutional values of attaining the efficient, economic, and effective use of public resources. On the debate of the Appropriation Bill B4 2020, the IFP wishes to re-emphasize the constitutional duty. We urge Parliament to actively oversee and demand accountability for government expenditure. We cannot tolerate, afford any further abuse of resources. In general, the IFP supports the state's fiscal policy stance. We have heard from National Treasurer's briefing that promulgation of the 2020 Appropriation Act is critical. Parliament must pass the bill within 4 months after the start of financial year. The IFP, however, remain highly concerned about the impact of the reduction of the schools backlog infrastructure grant, the education infrastructure grant, and the human settlement development grant. This grant benefits the most vulnerable in our society. During the lockdown, 397 schools were vandalized. This figure includes 34 schools in KwaZulu-Natal, a province already suffering with poor school infrastructure and reflecting a deep inequality in access to education. The impact of reducing the school backlog infrastructure grant will inevitably deepen the inequality with the access to the education. The IFP also wishes to stress the urgent need to fill key vacancies and staff shortage in the public health system. Again, it is some of most vulnerable provinces who are suffering from the dire shortage in healthcare workers. We agree with the submission made by civil society on the bill that is a critical aspect. National Treasury needs to take into account and address. In conclusion, Madam Chair, the IFP accepts that reduction and reprioritization of funds require difficult choices. However, it is our constitutional duty to ensure that we prioritize the needs of the people. We therefore need to hold those responsible for mismanagement and corruption to account, to ensure that funds do reach those that are most vulnerable. I thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Honorable Member. The next speaker is Honorable S. Nkosi, KwaZulu-Natal Chairperson of Standing Committee of Finance. Over to you.
Albongwe. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, for allowing us as KwaZulu-Natal to be part of this Appropriations Bill 2020. We want to state, Honorable Chairperson, that it is very, very important for me as a person who was already in the high school when the 1976 Soweto Revolution took place. We salute even today the generation of young people of 1976 who took up stones to fight the apartheid army and the police who were armed to the teeth. We implore the present youth to take up mental weapons to fight the invisible enemy called COVID-19. The KwaZulu-Natal Honorable Chairperson mandated the Finance Portfolio Committee to process the Appropriations Bill. That scrutiny resulted in the unanimous report, which we presented through the virtual means in the August House. We want to indicate, Honorable Chairperson, that all of us as parties in KwaZulu-Natal unanimously supported the Appropriations Bill. Honorable Chairperson, the reasons why we supported this bill is because it has allocated more than 111.441 billion rand to the people of KwaZulu-Natal in the form of the equitable share. And we also noted that there were fiscal consolidation and cost of employment adjustments that were made. But despite that, we understood the rationale and we supported that bill. We want also to indicate that we had to deal with the problems of 8 years which we have been experiencing as KwaZulu-Natal, which arose out of the census 2011, where we had to come up with the ways of ensuring that we shield service delivery as much as we could. Thus, then we came up with the cost-cutting measures long before even the National Treasury came up with, and we had to cut the frills and all the nice to haves in order to ensure that our people benefit through service delivery. Honorable Chairperson, the bill allocates to KwaZulu-Natal not less than 22 billion rand in the form of conditional grants. And want to point out that when we were reporting as a finance committee in the House, that 2 departments were not allocated the EPWP integrated grant for provinces, and another department could not be allocated the the social sector EPWP incentive grant for the provinces because of the issues which we suspect that are related to spending or the poor accountability on behalf of these three departments. We are awaiting the written explanation from these departments as to exactly what happened and why. We will step in to call for consequence management to officials who are responsible for this. KZN, Honorable Chairperson, is totally against any department or public entity which fails to spend the conditional grants. This is what we are not supporting at all. We also wanted to reiterate our old position that we are still supporting the FFC position, which calls for the elimination of the indirect grants that are sent specifically to the local government due to the inherent underspending as compared to the direct grants that we have noticed over a long period of time. Honorable Chairperson, KwaZulu-Natal adopted the 2020-2021 budget, which flows from this appropriation bill. So we adopted it with the clear understanding that we are going to experience massive adjustments to the budget as we are all geared to fight COVID-19. Honorable Chairperson, we also looked at the local government allocations, whose equitable share amounted to just more than 14.6 billion rand, which is distributed to our 54 municipalities, which includes our metro. The conditional grants also amounted to 8.4 billion. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is Honorable M.S. Moletsane, Economy Freedom Fighter. Honorable Moletsane.
Thank you, Chairperson of the session, honorable members, and the fellow South African. The Appropriation Bill tabled by the Minister of Finance in February during his budget speech is a bill that is passed by Parliament to give departments and state-owned entities at national government to spend money for a financial year. When the minister tabled the bill in February, the coronavirus pandemic had not arrived in South Africa, and the world was very different to what it is now. The bill makes allocation to many activities that, as a result of COVID-19, these activities will not happen, and that money is going to be spent somewhere. The Appropriation Bill, in its current form, had allocated money for tourism activities, art and culture activities, sports activities, including many trainings and programs that involve gatherings, which under COVID-19 are prohibited. When the Minister of Finance announced the COVID-19 economic stimulus, it was presented as new money. But the reality is that there is no new money that was announced. Instead, the Minister of Finance is going to reprioritize within the current budget more than 130 billion, and we have been waiting for the new budget. Departments are spending money responding to COVID-19 already, and what we are doing here has no material substance and is not linked to the reality. What is shocking, Honorable Chair of the session, is the fact that COVID-19 has exposed that year in, year out, we appropriate money and there is no sense of responsibility to spend according to what we appropriate, especially in provinces and local government. COVID-19 has also exposed the neoliberal austerity budget as misguided and not suitable for our economy. With or without dealing with COVID-19, it is about time that after COVID-19, we must never go back to the days of austerity, days of cutting government expenditure for misguided fiscal discipline double standard. When in any case, the debt continue to grow out of hand without any plan in sight to contain it. On state-owned companies, the effort by the Minister of Public Enterprise refused to give proper support for state-owned entities that were misused and rendered dysfunctional by mismanagement of the ruling party. Any attempt to privatize SOEs will be met with an appropriate response, and we will defend our SOEs. Our SOEs must be at the center of industrial policy and creation, but the ruling party has no capacity and political will to put SOEs at the center of our economy's future. This is an opportunity to build state capacity to produce our own PPEs, our own electronics, our own cars, and other essential products necessary, with the capacity to export the surplus. But we also need to build a capable state with competent public servants, especially in provinces and municipalities, and do away with tenders that are used to steal public money. Government must have its capacity to build schools, build hospitals, build roads, build water and sanitation infrastructure, and ensure that the money we appropriate is not stolen. Lastly, Chair of the session, the COVID-19 has exposed how outdated the money bill procedure is. We always pass bills of money that is already been spent. And at the end of the day, we are a parliament of rubber stamping, the executive budget without any valuable input. We need to really look at the manner in which Parliament processes appropriation bill, so that the money that is appropriated before departments start spending it. And we should use that opportunity to ensure that we allocate money to service our people in time. EFF is not in support of the bill. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is Honorable SC Sikwati Lipompo MEC from Provisional Treasury. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, members of the NCOP, Minister of Finance, and my colleagues from various provinces. Honorable Chairperson, we note the low economic growth rate, a context in which this budget was prepared. We also support the notion that fiscal sustainability must be on our uppermost on the uppermost of our agenda, and the government spending needs to be constrained by making difficult and sometimes painful decisions, such as lowering program baselines and the wage bill. It will further be important that as government we take vital steps to ensure that we receive value for money for all state expenditure. As Limpopo, we will continue to support the ideals of the ANC of being a caring government through various grants that are meant to reduce inequality, to secure the well-being of the vulnerable, of the most vulnerable in society. Honorable Chairperson, we also know the economic impact of the recent COVID-19 pandemic. particularly on unemployment and reduced tax revenue base. That will support the need for a stimulus package for sustenance of the private and NPO sectors. This on its own means that we have a lot of work to do as South Africans, and now and beyond COVID-19 in turning the situation around. But what will be important is how we are repositioning ourselves in moving forward. Some factors that may need to be considered going forward to deal with the impact of the COVID-19 are amongst the following. That is, we propose that we need a very clear response strategy that will inspire investor, consumer confidence, encourage private and government infrastructure investments that contribute towards the economic growth like water and roads, particularly for underdeveloped rural provinces like Limpopo. We need to develop local industries that is aggressive industrialization, targeting African markets, but also strengthen local government's capacity in revenue collection and enhancement. We have already heard about how our municipalities are struggling, and it will even be worse beyond the COVID-19. We also need to adapt to the fourth industrial revolution of both public and private sectors and increase our research and development capabilities, which will translate to economic activity, particularly for those provinces that are underdeveloped and in the former Bantustan areas. Our chairperson as Limpopo province, we support the bill and the budget allocations, noting the challenges created by the recent COVID-19 pandemic on the current budget allocations. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is Honorable P.S. Ngomane, Mpumalanga MEC for Finance.
Malibongwe.
Malibongwe.
No, thank you, House Chair, honorable members. Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to participate in this important debate on Appropriation Bill, which we support as the province of Mpumalanga. This debate takes place at a time when all of us as individuals, parliamentarians, and civil society are called upon to wage unrelenting war against global health pandemic COVID-19. This pandemic is, unfortunately, adding on existing challenges such as continue to confront, which are triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality within our communities. As the President O.R. Tambo once proclaimed, open quote, a nation that defeated apartheid possesses enough willpower to overcome any challenge, close quote. We will overcome this pandemic. Chairperson, the 2020 Appropriation Bill presents an opportunity for the government to continue responding to socio-economic challenges facing our communities. Notwithstanding the reduction in the provincial baselines, the bill continues to add impetus to the program of building a prosperous future for our nation. It reprioritized limited resources of the 2020 MTEF to respond to gender-based violence, early childhood development, human settlement, education, and health programs, amongst others. The provincial treasury is working with departments to manage the impact of reduction in the amounts for each grant. Chairperson, provinces have limited avenues for the generation of revenues. Given the restrained national fiscals and resultant reduction, we must support programs that are aimed to maximize our revenue streams, since Health Department is one of the primary beneficiaries of provincial collection. Honorable Chairperson, infrastructure delivery is critical for economic growth and the enhancement of well-being of society as a whole. The fiscals at the present moment will not be able to sufficiently fund new infrastructure projects that are critical to our growth strategy. Unlocking the triple P challenges, especially on mega infrastructure program, will therefore go a long way in restoring the private sector investment in the economy. Our premier in the province has mandated the economic cluster to package catalytic projects and source private sector participation as we ramp up investment in social and economic infrastructure for the province. Amongst the programs that will require private sector investment are the Nkomazi SEZ and Mpumalanga International Fresh Produce Market, both which hold huge economic growth prospects for the province. We will continue to make strides to ensure the acceleration of processes relating to these and other mega projects. As I conclude, Honorable Chairperson, let me restate that Mpumalanga supports the Appropriation Bill. We are particularly pleased to note the certainty proposed in the bill regarding the administration of conditional grants and the role of provinces that will leverage allocated resources to catalyze economic development and growth, as well as foster social, political, and cultural transformation in the province. I thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Member. The next speaker is F. Joy, Freedom Fight Plus.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Chair, I must stress that voting on this bill is only a technical procedure to enable Mr. Mboweni to table the supplementary budget on the 24th of June 2020. This bill is unrealistic and has been flawed from the beginning, and the Freedom Front Plus cannot support this bill. In February 2020, the budget was put to table without taking important global factors, the realistic estimated growth, and the dire state of South Africa's economy and SOEs into consideration. It seems as if the focus was rather placed on the ANC's skewed ideologies. Isaiah 5 verse 20, in the last days, good will be called evil, and evil will be called good, close quote. On 15 March 2020, President Ramaphosa stated the following while addressing the nation. We are battling a contagious virus. Perhaps the greatest dangers to our country at this time are fear and ignorance, close quote. The president was correct when he didn't tell South Africa, but what he didn't tell South Africa was that the South African government would use fear to destroy the livelihoods while being ignorant to hunger, unemployment, bankruptcy, and discrimination and the brutal farm murders. Chair, the South African economy was downgraded not as a result of COVID-19, but as a result of mismanagement and corruption by the ANC's own cadres. Cadres destroying the economy of once prosperous SOEs in the name of empowerment. Power-hungry politicians that collapse the economy, resulting in unemployment of thousands of people, while the ANC boast that they will dry the tears with 350 rands worth of banknotes per month that never appear. Today, I salute every farm worker, farmer, and their families that continue to provide food for the country, in spite of government refusing to protect their livelihoods and lives. According to a report of the Rome Institute, a total of 15 farm attacks occurred in May 2020, with 4 people being brutally killed. From the 1st of June up to the 16th, 16 attacks took place, with 3 people being killed. This is unacceptable, Chair, and the Freedom Front Plus acknowledged the sacrifice of every slain farmer, man, woman, and child. We honor the ones that survived these barbaric attacks. You are the true heroes. You are living monuments, proof to us all that we mustn't give up in the light of this draconic legislation and government's lip service of really caring about your safety and food security. We honor every business owner and entrepreneur that contributed to the tax bill and provided employment for so many South Africans, irrespective of their race and gender. Government failed those of you that are not BEE compliant by refusing financial assistance to your businesses in the name of radical economic transformation. This resulted in thousands of South Africans being unemployed, and thousands more will follow. Chair, the preamble of the Constitution reads that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. In spite of this, President Ramaphosa said on Tuesday, 5 May, that South Africa was witnessing a total destruction of its economy due to the COVID-19 coronavirus, and that radical economic transformation must be central to the plans to rebuild and repurpose. Chair, if you need a greater harvest, you don't burn down an orchard to plant new seeds. You cultivate land, plant seedlings, and tending to both. If you do this, you ensure food security and employment for more people. And Chair, it seems that for some people, it's easier to lie to the world than to be honest to themselves. We pray that the June 24 supplementary budget will benefit all South Africans and not just some. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is Honourable M.M. Likwene, Northern Cape, MEC for Finance. The next speaker is M.M. Likwene, Northern Cape, MEC Finance.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable. No. Thanks, Deputy Chair. Thank you very much, Chair of the session. And let me also acknowledge the Chair of the SOP, the Deputy, and all SOP members, both national and even provincial members of the legislature. Let me also take this opportunity to really appreciate the time given to us to reflect on our provinces. But I want to start by commending the outstanding and sterling work and leadership provided by His Excellency, our President, Dr. Ramaphosa, during this most difficult period of our lives. Also to also appreciate the work done by the Minister of Treasury and his deputy and his entire team. As a province, Northern Cape province, we do support the appropriate bill, first and foremost. But just to flag 3 more important 4 issues from our side as a province. The continued reduction, Honorable Chair, on our equitable share of our province as a Northern Cape puts serious constraint to deliver services in our province, given its vastness and its rural nature. For the past 10, 15 years, there's been a continued reduction in our equitable share because of the annual updates with regards to technical reduction in our province. And I must say, for the size of our province, given the population, because the equitable share is provided per capita, it makes our work extremely difficult. So we hope that the current review on the equitable share formula hopefully will favor small and rural provinces, especially like Northern Cape, because the issue of the numbers, which have been always part, they are important, I must make the point, but our province is vastly and very special So it's very expensive to do work in Northern Cape Province. From one town to the other, you can travel even more than 1,000 kilometers. So we are appealing that such considerations must be made when we allocate our budgets. But the second point, Madam Chair, is the infrastructure backlog in the John Taulo Gaetsewe region. This region initially belonged to Northwest Province. It was transferred to Northern Cape Province, I think in 2007, Madam Chair, and that there's continued pressure on the it's putting continuous pressure on the fiscals of the province because of the infrastructure backlog. When it was transferred to us, the budget of that backlog was not so transferred to us, and that it seeks to create all the time challenges for us as a province in terms of providing services, even especially compared to other regions. So currently we're sitting with another case of Bahamuti communities. There's close to 15 villages in the current Taung region, which also the processes are very far for those villages to be incorporated in our province, Northern Cape. We hope this time around that proper processes will be followed in relation to proper costing, the costing of the backlog, especially even around roads and even schools. That's why even the first region to have uprisings around schools in infrastructure backlog will be GTG amongst the others. So we are appealing to Treasury, as we do our annual updates. We hope that the team will really focus on that. But also, most importantly, I think just like many other provinces, we need to invest on our infrastructure development programs or projects, because to doing that, we'll be able to create jobs and even grow the economy extensively, which will then put us in a position to respond to the key to the stable challenges of our country, which is unemployment, poverty, and inequality. And lastly, Madam Chair, as the province, we've set ourselves a vision of creating a modern and growing successful province, which have been clear short, medium, and long-term postures. So we think that if considerations have been given to provinces like Northern Cape, which are small and rural, around the equitable share formula.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Your time is finished.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is MZ Rocha, North and West MEC for Finance.
No, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and greetings to members of the NCOP.
MZ Rocha.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and greetings to honorable members of the NCOP, as well as our Minister and the Deputy Minister and the Chairperson of the National Council. Madam Chair, let me start by appreciating the special invitation to address to participate in the engagement on the appropriation budget today. We find ourselves as people in a position where we are faced with unprecedented challenges that have brought about a lot of uncertainty, with both the health of our people and the economy being at risk that has been brought about by a pandemic of excessive proportions. Madam Chair, it is however important to note that the 2020 appropriation bill we are debating today marks the first strategic budget for the sixth administration. The 2020-21 budget is built on the visionary leadership of our Honorable President, His Excellency Ntate Cyril Ramaphosa. It is a pro-poor budget and focusing on programs that drives economic growth in line with the priorities of the sixth administration. To mention the few of those priorities, its budget made provision for expansion of the sanitary dignity program at our schools, and also created a safety net for those affected by gender-based violence. The current socio-economic challenges, Madam Chair, that include population growth at faster rates than economic growth, is creating serious budget allocation challenges. Our main concern as a Northwest province is that we do not have the resources to match the demands of the increasing number of people that are dependent on government programs. We anticipate the possibility of having to be faced with the situation of having no money for the increasing demands such as social pensions, child support grants, and even the future of the free tertiary education program that may be put at risk. The global economic conditions is expected to take a serious knock, Madam Chair, from the coronavirus. And consequently, most national economies are expected to record negative economic growth in 2020, with few projected to experience mild recovery in 2021. As a Northwest, Madam Speaker, I must say, we all know that mining and agriculture have for decades remained the backbone of the Northwest economy. The outbreak of COVID-19, which has forced many countries into lockdown, is likely to result in decline in the demand of mineral products from the province. While the sector has been operating as essential services, the agricultural sector, coupled with the cash injections from government in the form of relief support for farmers, the sector is expected to continue demonstrating growth for the period of in 2020. The mining industry, Madam Chair, faces an inevitable hit from the COVID-19 outbreak. Although there is still much uncertainty as to how much and how long and how far will they be impacted. In addition, significant outbreaks of COVID-19 in mines could negatively affect total factor productivity, as it will restrict the availability of skilled technicians and their ability to travel from affected areas, and the capacity of labor-intensive mining operations to produce raw materials. Madam Chair, as provincial treasurers, we understand that sacrifices have to be made in order to achieve the 1998 budget reform commitment of consistently maintaining the annual budget deficit of 3% or lower of GDP in order to ensure optimal service delivery to all South Africans. As a result, we fully support the proposal of zero-based budget as outlined by our minister last week. Madam Chair, as I draw to conclude, it will be unjust if I don't echo the frustrations and the challenges that are facing the social aids within our society as South Africans that we need to grapple with. There's been a worrying number of gender-based violence cases across the country, with increasing instances of brutal murders of women. We implore all South Africans, let us work together to ensure that we fight and challenge this challenge. It is disheartening that women, while also faced with COVID-19 pandemic, also have to fight for their safety under their main companies. Madam Chair, let me just draw a quote for courage in these challenging times. I quote Winston Churchill when he said, "Never let a good crisis go waste." Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is Honorable DM from Batman.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Chairperson, currently we are spending more money bailing out zombie state-owned enterprises than we are currently allocating to the COVID-19 pandemic. And not only is the province's funding decreasing, but it is estimated that we will be receiving more conditional grants compared to our fair share of the equitable share over the years. The Western Cape fundamentally disagrees with the inherently flawed equitable share formula for provinces, because this means that even where the Western Cape receives an increase of funds, it is not in proportion to what we should be receiving. Thus, the question of fairness is raised. Chairperson, to those unfamiliar watching regarding the equitable share formula, if Thandi received R6 this year and she received R5 last year, this means that there's an increase of R1 of her budget. But if she deserves to receive R8, then it means she's actually R2 short of what she deserves. Thus, her budget allocation would not be equitable. Just because she received more money does not mean she cannot dispute that she should have received more. Further, this national formula does not make sufficient provision for allocations to health, education, the drought and safety in the Western Cape. Funds do not follow patients, they do not follow learners, they do not follow infrastructure, they're not following our drought, and they do not follow the lack of SAP's resources and personnel. This speaks to national sphere of government being out of touch with the realities provinces face. Currently, the Western Cape is funding a safety budget that should be carried by the national government. We are also funding drought that should be carried by the national government because farmers and farm workers are suffering. The Eastern Cape Premier Chairperson indicated that they have asked for the finalization of the equitable share formula, and I completely agree. But we have heard that this will take 2 years, and I request from the Minister of Finance that it cannot possibly take this long. We need the finalization sooner. With the funds that the Western Cape received with its pre-COVID budget, the Western Cape committed also to a cleaner, greener energy future. Between the 2016-17 and 2018-19, the Western Cape government supported 4.19 billion rand in investment in the green economy. More than 100 beneficiaries were provided with training in green tech and coding, and the Western Cape has emerged as a leading province in regulatory frameworks for small-scale embedded generation. The Western Cape has thus allocated 60 million rand over the MTF period to the green economy team in order to support municipalities to procure electricity directly from independent power providers, promote the importation of liquid natural gas, and increase the rollout of rooftop solar PV. Chairperson, instead of bailing out failing state-owned enterprises, national government should allocate such funds to the provinces for frontline service delivery. At the current rate, based on the allocated bailouts, Eskom is going to bankrupt provinces. The Gauteng MEC indicated, Chairperson, that listed grants that were reprioritized. But I would like to add that not only do provinces have to reprioritize such funding, but the estimated baselines in the 2020 budget has decreased. So even when we receive more money, we receive less than previously expected. Essentially, national government is butchering provincial budgets to bail out state-owned enterprises such as Eskom and the 33 billion rand bailout that was allocated in this current budget. The KZN chairperson indicated, Chair, that the KZN had to cut nice to haves. But if I remember correctly, Chairperson, the eThekwini municipality in KZN predicting 42% is currently approving 1,200 rand per month for clothing allowances so that their bodyguards can buy suits. In the Western Cape, we made away with these nice to haves a long time ago, and our current budget cuts are going to have to start cutting into our frontline services. Further, the upcoming adjustment budget provides an opportunity for national to provide provinces with funds for the COVID crisis based on the impact the pandemic has on provinces. These funds must be allocated equitably. Chairperson, every province deserves its fair share. Finally, I would like to request more information from the former governor and central banker, Minister Mboweni, regarding the source of funding for the PPP project conditionally approved by National Treasury.
Your time is finished.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the speaker from Salga. Is it Salga here?
Yes, ma'am, Salga is here.
Okay, sorry, they didn't give me your name in a second.
Honourable
Montlane. Thanks,
Yes,
ma'am.
right.
You can speak.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson of NCOP, the Deputy Chair, honourable members, greetings. Chairperson, the entire financial and operational landscape in South Africa has changed since the outbreak of COVID-19. It is incumbent upon all of us to come up with plans to deal with the new normal post-COVID-19. The current state of the economy implies that the municipal finances will come under siege with the increasing pressure of finances. The President announced implementation of a massive social relief and economic support package of 500 billion, out of which 20 billion has been made available to municipalities for the provision of emergency water supply, increased sanitation of public transport and facilities, and providing food and shelter for the homeless. Whilst acknowledging this swift and decisive response to the pandemic, The flaws of local government and fiscal framework have been further exposed. SALGA welcomes the fact that this additional funding will augment other interventions that are already put in place, including those already implemented as part of the broader social package that government is driving with social partners, which includes disaster relief fund, reprioritization and repositioning of grants, and will furthermore address the cash flow and liquidity challenges in municipalities. SALGA proposes that a portion of the 20 billion allocation to municipalities be made available by the 30th of June 2020 in order to enable local government to deal with financial expenditure burden that is associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. Chairperson, one of the key focus areas for local government to emerge better, it's the fact that we need to begin to expedite the process of resolving the state of municipal finances. Municipal revenues are expected to decline as a result of the economic impact of the lockdown. 5% drop in payment rates will cost an estimated 14 billion. Furthermore, Chair, the current reality is that the aggregate municipal consumer debt amount of 181 billion, of which not all are realistically collectible. The situation is further exaggerated by the retracted economic growth, limited tax revenues, and as well as the rising debt levels due to an unaffordable burden of struggling rate taxpayers. We are hopeful that the FFC study will be able to investigate the revenue sources for local government and will then yield positive results in that regard. In the spirit of intergovernmental relations, ESCOM should be engaged to similar municipalities, suspend all electricity disconnections for the duration of the lockdown, and review the interest payable on areas caused by and linked to the national state of disaster and the lockdown. If there is anything that we can learn from the pandemic and humility, we look forward to the tabling of a special adjustment budget by the Minister of Finance on the 24th of June 2020. And in closing, Chair, I will be doing injustice if I close without leaving you with a quote by Aristotle, as we are in the Youth Month, who says that all who have meditated on the art of governing mankind have been convinced that the fate of empires depends on the education of young people. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next speaker is Honorable W.A. Ocamp.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Is Ocamp, Chair?
Ocamp.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chairperson,
Yes.
Honorable Minister, members of this House, we are in trouble. Let me say that again. We are in trouble. If you don't believe me, you can ask the Chief Director of National Treasury, Dr. Mampu Modise, who, when addressing Parliament's Joint Committee on Appropriations, used these very same words when she described the financial situation that our country finds itself in. We are in trouble, and I wonder whose fault that is. Honorable Chairperson, sorry, can we just stop the time? I see that I am not visible on the television screen, Honorable Chairperson.
Not on the TV.
We can see him. We can see him this side, Chair.
Yeah, but we are seeing your face on the screen at the moment, Mr. Mpisi.
We can see you. Continue.
Thank you.
Do you want to see yourself, Honorable Ocamp?
I think the whole country deserves to see me on the importance of what I'm going to say.
Order, honorable members.
Honorable Ocamp is in trouble, Chair.
No, I'm not in trouble. I think that you are deliberately trying to hijack my speech here, and it's not acceptable.
Honorable member, you can continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will continue. I just think that it would be fair that everybody gets the same treatment and I'm most certainly not getting the same treatment as the ANC got, but maybe that is what the whole country is experiencing by not getting the same treatment as ANC cadres gets. Honourable Chairperson, I'm going to state this again. We are in trouble. And it's not me that says that. That was said in the National Treasury by Dr. Mampo Modise, who used these same words. Honourable Chairperson, the problem is that we as South Africans have become so used to the fact that we are in financial trouble that we are like people in a haunted house. But we are seemingly not aware of the ghosts around us anymore. The mismanagement by the ANC government of our country's finances have now come back to haunt us. This appropriations bill is again proof thereof. The DA has in the past continuously warned about the mismanagement of our country's finances, especially the bailing out of struggling state-owned enterprises, as well as the negative effect that the country's BEE, the ANC's BEE policy, has on our economy. We have frequently raised the concern that
can the member take a question?
That will.
Can the member take a question?
If I've got time at the end, I will answer questions, but I would urge the member to listen, and because that is what the ANC.
I want to ask you a question. It's my right as a member to ask a question.
It's not your right to interfere.
Order, honourable member. Order, members. Honourable member, do you want to take the question?
I will take a question at the end if I've got time available.
To take the question?
I will take a question at the end of my speech if I've got time available. I would now urge the ANC to start to listen. It might benefit them. Thank you.
We can't benefit from the liberals.
Okay.
Chairperson, point of order.
Okay, you can continue, member.
Chairperson, can that member please get into order?
Chairperson, point of order.
What a point of order?
Chairperson, the process to ask a question is first to raise a point of order and then ask whether you would be able to answer a question. You just can't interrupt.
And the DA is also.
No, that's not true. That's not true, honourable member.
Continue to speak. Order, members.
Honourable
Order,
Chairperson,
please.
am I allowed to continue now?
Yes,
or
Baba.
Thank you
You
very
can
much.
speak.
Continue, you are in trouble.
I have said before that we have, from the DA side, frequently raised the concern that it will be the people of South Africa, especially the poor, who will suffer the most due to the failing policies of the ANC, due to things like the failing state-owned enterprises, and due to the fact that the ANC is keeping on to implement its crippling BEE policy. We urge government to start to listen to the DA and to slay these two ghosts in the haunted house of the ANC government by the immediate privatization of failing state-owned enterprises, as well as the scrapping of government's failing BEE policy. Madam Chair, another ghost in this haunted house is our debt service cost, which is at 15.2% of our budget. This ANC government has driven our country into junk status.
Order, members.
Can I continue,
you can continue, member, but your time now is finished. We are disturbing you.
My
can you
time
please
cannot
continue?
be finished. I have been disrupted so many times, Madam Chair. Can I continue, please?
You are disrupting yourself.
No, please sit down. Ridiculous.
Order, members, please.
Madam
Order.
Chair, can I continue?
Please sit down.
Yes.
Another ghost in this haunted house of the ANC is our debt service cost, which is at 50.2% of our main budget. This ANC government has driven our country into junk status, which had the effect that it has become extremely difficult for us to borrow money. The fact that we are rated junk
your time is
increase of costs related to the money that we borrow, which will in turn put an even bigger burden on the lives of ordinary South Africans who will now receive even less services by this government. Another ghost in government's haunted house is the fact that government can't provide sufficient guarantees.
Your date is up.
No, Chair, I'm asking if Member Okam can take a question.
It cannot be that my time is
Thank you, your time up.
Order, please.
Chairperson, on a point of order.
Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. Honorable members, order, please. The next speaker is Honorable Y.I. Karim.
Chairperson,
on a point of order.
Chairperson, there's a point of order.
People calling for points of order. It's Mlindi Nana speaking. I'm saying, Chairperson, you can't proceed.
Honorable members, there's no need for you to fight for the order. The speaker has done.
I'm saying you can't proceed.
Can we continue?
There is a person who has called for a point of order.
With the debate, Honorable Karim.
Honorable Mlindi, you're out of order. You're out of order, Honorable Mlindi. Allow the chair to chair the meeting.
That you can't control this council because everybody's just speaking.
There's a point of order on the table, Madam Chair.
Don't recognize us. And you allow the ANC special delegates just to interfere.
Members.
Deputy Chair,
Can
you are.
continue with the debate?
No, the
We can't
chairperson.
continue.
Please look
Who's
at
sharing now?
and recognize the points of
Nana,
order.
it doesn't matter. You speak like you want to, but you asking who's hearing now.
No,
We can speak
but this
also.
is Deputy Chair. You are a presiding officer. You cannot sit.
Deputy Chair, we've been trying to ask a
presiding
question
officer,
to
I
a
want
member,
order in
and
the
the
house.
TA members
I
don't
want
agree.
order in the house.
You are all out of order because the chairperson has to look at the raised hands. There are 4 hands raised on points of order. That is being ignored. And all the other people, the special delegates, just jump in and shout out. This is not how we do it in this house.
You
I'm
also out of order.
order as well.
Members, please behave.
I'm a whip. I can raise a point.
Chairperson, take charge of your meeting, of your sitting.
Deputy Chair, we can talk to each other on the phone.
Honorable
after.
members.
Just do your job.
Allow me to chair the meeting. Take charge of your meeting, please.
Honorable
Honorable
Chairperson, I'm
members,
rising on a point of order. It's
Honorable members.
I'm rising on
please.
a point of order, Honorable Chairperson.
What point of order now, Yano?
Honorable Chairperson, thank you for recognizing me.
Order. Chairperson, if I may call the house into order. That is up. Can you please give me a chance to call these hands that is up, please? Yes, take the hands. Honorable
Yes.
Abuskachli is the one that is raised the hand.
My hand is also up,
Take the
Honorable Chair.
hands, Chairperson. Yes, thank you, Deputy Chair. Yes, number 1. Honorable Abuskachli.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. I already raised the points that I needed to raise. What I wanted to say is, please look at the hands raised so that we deal with the points of order and people not just start shouting out because that creates chaos.
That's what exactly what I said, Honorable Abuskachli. Thank you. The next speaker is
Honorable Chair, my hand is up. Honorable House Chair, my hand is up. Honorable House Chair, my hand is up. My hand is up for a point of order, Honorable House Chair, and it has been up all the time. I would like to be recognized on a point of order, please.
Honorable Moai was before you speak after Honorable Clotte.
Thank you, House Chair.
Sharing the meeting now.
I want to
restoring order.
House Chair.
Yes.
There's been the level of
Chief
noise has been very high to the extent that it disrupts the speakers.
Causing
I want to
chaos,
appeal
Honorable
across.
Sylvia.
Honorable Nana, I agree with you, but I want parties that we really allow the flow of the debates on this important subject without any interruption. May we please not make a noise and allow the speakers so that we can hear important discussions that is taking place. Thanks.
Thanks, Chief Whip. Honorable Okam.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I've raised on a point of order due to the fact that I've been interrupted by special delegates during my speech that I could not even get to the time to deliver my speech. The timing that you have done was not correct. If you have paused the stopwatch every time that I've been interrupted, I would have had plenty of time left. I am not even halfway through my speech, but I have been interrupted. So I insist on being given the opportunity to finish my speech, please, without being interrupted.
No,
We are showing
no,
respect by
no.
listening to the
Sit
ANC
down.
when they speak, and I would expect the same discipline from them.
Please.
So please
Honorable
allow me
Chair,
some time,
special
Madam Chair,
delegates have
to
the
finish
right to ask
with my speech.
questions. You are participant in this meeting.
And I have said that I will answer at the end.
The members allow the chairperson to chair the sitting. You laid your bed, you must lie on it. You made your bed.
We've got the chair here.
Can we go to the next speaker?
Can I please finish my speech? I have been interrupted and my time has not been adjusted.
Your data is on, Okam.
Your time
Your
is
data
up,
is on.
Okam. Please, please, your time is up.
Sit down.
Can I please, Madam Chair, get protection and complete
Can we go
my
to the
speech?
next speaker, please, Chairperson?
Can I please complete my speech, Honorable Chairperson?
Many people have not. Many people have not completed their speeches because of the time. It's not necessary.
I have not completed my
But
speech because of the fact that you
No,
ANC
your time
interrupted
is
me.
up,
And
Honorable
He spoke for more than 4 minutes. You must just step aside.
maybe I should go and have some Kentucky. Maybe then you will listen. Maybe Kentucky.
You can go wherever you want.
KFC for the
You can go wherever you want.
Ek sien jou wange is vet, jou kop is rond soos 'n sokkerbal.
Honorable Chairperson, I think that is unparliamentary. I'm quite in shape, and I dare the Honorable Lucas to challenge me on a 100-meter sprint.
Honorable Okam, go and have the Kentucky. It's open. You can go eat.
Yeah, it's Honorable Lucas that bought 40,000 in Kentucky, but be that as it may, Madam Chair, can I please be protected and continue with my speech?
Leave the point of order, continue with the debate, Chairperson.
Chairperson.
Honorable Chair, can I continue with my speech, please? And
Speech is finished. Your time is up.
my time is not up, and you are not at the chair at the moment. Who is chairing this meeting?
Honorable
Is it
House
Honorable
Chair.
Lucas?
Can you please, if a matter of Honorable Okam is given a consideration, can you please refer to your table desk, and then if appropriate, Honorable Okam didn't complete the remaining minutes. He accordingly be accorded the time. He finishes his speech. Can we please and then restore the order of the House?
That is a sensible
It's not
proposal.
the only
Honorable
one.
members. Honorable members, please give me a chance to share this meeting.
Yes.
You know, it's so difficult on the situation that we are right now. And I did give a member a chance. Can you please allow me to do my work? Honorable Clote, your hands is up. And Honorable Khai, the hands is up. I've got only that 2 hands that is left. Can you please speak, Honorable Clote?
Thank you, Chairperson. I actually agree with you. So I was wondering if we can just confirm whether you are the presiding officer now, or is it Honorable Lucas now, because she's interrupting. And there she goes again. You are the presiding officer now, and she can't make any judgments. It's for you to make the
I
judgments.
didn't make any judgment. I restored the order. I didn't make judgment.
It's not your job.
I assisted to restore the order.
Are you done, Honorable?
Out of order, it's not the point of order.
Are you done, Honorable Clote?
Just speak whenever you want to.
Honorable Clote, are you done?
I'm finished. Thank you.
Thanks very much. No. Lapsgarden, I did give you a chance to speak.
Chairperson,
You
on
are
a point of
repeating
order.
yourself now.
No, it's now high.
On a point of order, Chairperson.
Yes, it's high, but I see Honorable Lapskan hands is up.
Don't
Honorable
debate.
Khai,
It's La Buscagna. It's La Buscagna. House Chair.
Lapskan.
Chocolate.
Okay, Honorable Khai, can you please speak?
Chairperson, I
Honorable
didn't
Khai.
raise my hand.
Honorable Khai.
Chair, I didn't raise my hand.
Okay, thanks very much. I've got hands that is up, but it was not up on that time. Honorable Titoy, your hands was not up. Can the table help me? Because now they are busy raising their hands. I don't know what to do.
Chairperson, I'm raising my hand on a point of order.
No, can you please, I'll come back to you because you did speak. I want the table to help me.
Chairperson, a point of order is not whether you had the time to speak or not. I have to raise a point of order now.
No, there are another hands
hands
that is up after you. There are another hands that is up after we have been speaking.
Honorable Chair.
Chairperson, I'm going to raise a point of order on the proceedings.
Okay.
You did not allow her to speak.
Honorable Lapscombe.
Thank you, Chairperson.
No, your surname is so difficult.
I want
Yeah,
but you know that I'm talking to you, my darling. Please speak, Sisi.
Thank you, Chairperson. And I'm Honorable Abaskachni or Honorable Kathy. I'm not a CC in Parliament. Outside, you can call me whatever.
Sorry, Honorable Katie.
Chairperson, I want to just point out that Honorable Lucas made some personal comments on a member.
Started by outcome, so you didn't hear
It was
outcome.
absolutely
So you
unparliamentary.
didn't hear outcome.
And I would
So you
like you to
didn't hear
ask her
outcome.
to withdraw
Don't
what
be
she
like
said
that.
about
The
Honorable
outcome must first withdraw. Outcome must first withdraw. He must first withdraw.
And Honorable Chairperson, I really think that the Deputy Chair is out of order today. I don't know what is going on, but she's totally out of order, and the conduct of the Chairperson is totally unacceptable. I want you to do a ruling. Thank you.
But you are the one that is causing all. Outcome first.
Can you
Raising
keep
a point
quiet,
of order,
please?
Chair.
Raise your hand to ask a question.
Are you done, Honorable Katie? Honorable Katie, are you done?
Yes,
He's
Chair,
done.
thank you.
Are you done,
I have
Honorable
my hand
Katie?
up, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Member. Honorable members. Honorable members. Let all the hands go down now. I want to take a ruling.
Okay.
Please. Honorable Okam, I would like to give you 2 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. I really appreciate that.
Well done.
Okay, thanks, Papa.
Thank you very much. Honorable,
2 minutes.
Honorable House Chair, let me then continue. I have warned about the ghost within the ANC. Yet another ghost in ANC's haunted house is the fact that government can't provide sufficient guarantees for the loans that this country is making anymore. And they now want to capture private citizens' pension funds for the failure of government to provide its own security. We cannot do that. Honorable Chairperson, a lot of people thought that it was just the ghost of Jacob Zuma that was haunting us. But it seems it is actually the ghosts of the entire ANC that are still haunting us, even today. Madam Chair, it was Albert Einstein who said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but to expect different results. This seriously raises the question about the sanity of this government's policies, especially when it comes to the management of our finances. Government keeps on making the same mistakes over and over again, but they expect different positive results. It's insane. Honorable Chair, stating that we are in trouble is an admission by this government of the ghosts that are present in their haunted house. Perhaps this admission is what is required to start us on the road to recovery. The acknowledgement of the fact that we are in trouble must now result in the abandoning of the ANC's failed policies, which must now urgently be replaced by constructive policies and solutions those offered by the Democratic Alliance. We do not support this bill, and we do not support the conduct of the ANC members of this House. Thank you very much.
It's the policy.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Now sit down.
Order. Order, Honorable Member. Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is Honorable Y.I. Karim.
Point of order.
Thank you, Chairperson.
African National Congress.
Friend,
Rising on a point of order, Chair.
Oh,
Okay.
It's
What
Honorable
a
Latoy
point
speaking,
of
Chair.
order, Honorable.
Thank you, Chair. Chair,
Yes.
the Honorable Lucas told Honorable Kluter to sugar, to footsack. He's not a dog. It's unparliamentary. We insist that you ask her to
now, tricky.
please rule on this matter, Honorable Chair.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
unparliamentary to make use of that. He's not a dog. If she speaks like that to her children, she's welcome. It's in her house, but
Take the answer.
not to
Take
us.
the answer. Take the answer.
Member.
It's
Thank
so
you, Honorable Member. The table because there was a lot of noise. I didn't hear her when she said like that. I'll ask the table to help me and come back with the response. Honorable Radi Van Ryder, your hands is up.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. House Chair, we are sitting with a dangerous precedent now, and I notice that it's your own colleagues that are undermining you. And it's my request that you address the fact that you are in the chair. The deputy chairperson is not in the chair and has been acting like she has. And now the chairperson of the Appropriations Committee is also jumping in and trying to take control. Chairperson, I'd like that as we sit on a virtual platform, it becomes incredibly difficult. And as soon as people try to heckle, they actually cut out the speaker and the heckling takes over. So I'd like to say, Chairperson, while we're on this virtual platform, let's be very careful of the precedents that we start to set, because as soon as we start jumping in and interrupting each other in the manner in which was started, and I think the special delegates need to note that they are here for today. The rest of us are here. They need to fall in line with the way we do things. We treat each other with excellent respect. We have a constructive manner of dealing in this house, Chair. I'd like that to be preserved. And so please, and Chair, please own the chair. Okay, you don't need to give it up to anybody else, and call your colleagues to account, please. Thank you.
The point of order is
You won't start the fight if you cannot handle it.
Order, members.
Or is it...
Honorable Kopane, your hands is up.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I'm a bit perturbed, Chair, when Honorable Ocamp and the other member is referring to the special delegates as jumping and speaking. No, that is not acceptable, Chairperson, please.
Okay, thanks, ma'am. Honorable members, can we please behave? You know, it's so difficult on this situation. It's the first time in my life working in parliament like this. Can you please give me a chance to do my work? On what members have said, I'll ask the table to help me, because some of you, I didn't hear what you are saying. The way there was so many noise. Honorable JMPC of Gauteng, also your hands is up.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Now I want to say, Chair, that we are deployed by our legislatures to participate in these meetings. And I don't think there's anything wrong in us asking questions as members of this House. Whether we are permanent delegates or what, it doesn't matter, but we are participants deployed by our provinces. So I want us to be accorded the very same respect that we're giving to members. It's not an insult to ask a question to a member who's on a platform. It is parliamentary good to engage on that. If a member does not take a question, I'll withdraw that. But to be subjected to some insult, particularly by member Matebula from Limpopo, the EFF member, it's really unfair, and I don't think the member understands that we are members of this House. And we're not backbenchers in our provinces, unfortunately. Thank you very much.
Thanks, honorable member. I'll take a ruling on this matter that I didn't hear anything because there were a lot of noise. The table will help me. Can we continue with our debate, honorable members? The next speaker is Honorable Karim.
Thank you, Chairperson. I take it my 12 minutes starts from now. Comrades, friends, obviously this appropriations bill we're dealing with is the pre-COVID February 2020 appropriations bill, but inevitably, understandably, we've spilled over in the way we process this bill into COVID-19 issues, as in fact this debate has done. And that's perhaps partly because of the 24 June supplementary budget that comes next week. We were severely challenged, of course, before COVID-19. I don't think the ANC's denied that, hit us. Despite that, this is a reasonably well-balanced bill in our view. It reduces unnecessary expenditure without, of course, undermining core service delivery programs, even if the holding back of infrastructure is seriously worrying. And but certainly we could have done more to reduce unnecessary expenditure, and most certainly we could do more, all of us, not just government, parliament too, and civil society, to reduce the levels of corruption. Now, given the challenges we had, Chairperson, before COVID-19 hit us, and even more since then, it's ever more necessary for all political parties in our House to work more closely together and more consensually together. And I think this is probably agreed to by the majority in the House, that if we across political parties can't work together in COVID-19 circumstances, when, Chairperson, will we ever do so? And in fact, when we started dealing with COVID-19, we had a relative degree of consensus across the political parties, but that regrettably has begun to unravel, and we began to retreat into our party niches, sadly at the expense of the people out there. And this debate itself has shown that, as indeed has the discussion around the appropriations bill. And if you listen to Mr. Ryder in particular, it seems almost as if he's saying that the ANC government is responsible for COVID-19, instead of the global powers, which his party identifies with largely in the Northern Hemisphere, who knew this pandemic was coming. They didn't know in what form. But despite the growth in robotics, development in robotics, artificial intelligence and the like, they couldn't be concerned as they selfishly pursued their profit interests. Now, the same narrowness of Mr. Ryder in today's debate is reflected in the way he and his colleagues argued in our committees, the two committees in NA and NCOP, that the budget is being racialized by the ANC because of its focus on BBBEE. And this became a big issue. Now, let's stress, the ANC is utterly clear. COVID-19 is swiping the super rich and the dirt poor and all the shades in between. And whether it's a right-wing Afrikaner or a destitute African or so-called colored, it matters not, and any shade in between. Nobody deserves to die because of COVID-19. And we want to stress, if COVID-19 is hitting all of us, it is hitting primarily the poor and the disadvantaged, not just in South Africa, but globally too. And in this country, regrettably, and this is what the DA must also answer for, in this country, our inequalities are still substantially racialized. And COVID-19, notes a study, referred to in this week's Business Day, I think it was, follows, it said, the geospatial lines of apartheid. Let me quote, Chairperson. The coronavirus, it said, this report, is far more prevalent in high-density townships where social distancing is all but impossible. It is hitting South Africa's mainly black townships harder than former white areas. Nearly 12%, noted the Business Day report, of all infections in the Western Cape, note, are in Khayelitsha, even though it has 6% of the province's population. By contrast, notes the report, Stellenbosch, which has just 1% of Western Cape cases, makes up 4% of the population. And Mitchell's Plain, a mainly so-called colored area, has 9% of the infections. The DA argues that the BBBEE laws need to be suspended in allocating funds to rescue businesses, especially SMMEs. But it's Parliament that has passed the BBBEE legislation. And the introduction of the state of national disaster has not led to the suspension of any laws, including the BBB laws. Nor is it, in fact, we stress to Mr. Ryder and his colleagues, the Finance Committee's responsibility to suspend. We don't have that power. Moreover, the BBBEE laws largely belong to the Trade and Industry Committee, not the Finance Committee. We also pointed out government is not stupid. While the main focus has been on emerging businesses, there's no blanket ban on white-owned business gaining financial support, as indeed they have. After all, many of them employ African and colored and Indian and other workers, even white workers. And these are workers. And COSATU has made it clear in our very public hearing on this bill that it supports the defense of workers' jobs, whether the employer is white or not. Now, Mr. Mboweni mentioned in a committee meeting that he spoke with a white owner of a lodge, somewhere in Limpopo, I think it was, who said to him that despite employing black labor, he wasn't getting any support from government. And Mr. Mboweni said, the minister said, that he doesn't agree with that approach and he will speak to the minister concerned. Now, clearly, the minister is entitled to his views. Insofar as it doesn't reflect cabinet or the ANC-NEC's views, both the NEC and the cabinet has made that clear. And it's in the public domain. There's no state secret about it, which is what I mentioned. But of course, Mr. Ryder, like the DA, who can't find no minister worth praising, cling onto Mr. Mboweni's personal statements and made much of the divisions in the ANC on the application of BBB in COVID-19 circumstances, including through a highly inaccurate media statement through Facebook. Now, I'm not on Facebook, and nor did I catch this. In fact, his statement was so ineffectual that it's only some 10 days later, Chairperson, in an exchange with a colleague, a comrade actually, he asked me what was going on there, and I discovered that he issued that statement that appeared in Citizen. It was much too late for me to respond because he referred to me in particular there. So I want to make it clear that Mr. Ryder's statement, nobody else seems to have covered it, is replete with inaccuracies, and he picked some of this up today, the undertones of what he says, the subtext, and indeed his colleague, Mr. Alcombe. Now, I want to make something clear. There were certainly no differences when we processed the strat plan and APP and this bill among ANC MPs. There was no heat amongst us. There was obviously difference of emphasis. There was a single ANC MP that said in the chat section, which I hadn't seen, that she didn't agree with the view I had expressed, that Mr. Mboweni often, or sometimes at least, says statements that do not belong to the collective of the cabinet and in fact to the ANC-NEC positions. He himself shrugs that off in the public domain. He expresses his view. That's for cabinet and the NEC to decide on. As far as parliament is concerned, we are clear. We passed the BBBEE laws and we're going to implement them while taking into account the conditions that are pointed out of COVID-19 and the exceptionalism of it. But certainly nobody in our committee said that the Minister of Finance can override cabinet, as he himself knows and often makes clear when he defers it. And most certainly, absolutely nobody in the ANC suggested that the BBB laws are unconstitutional in COVID-19 circumstances. Most of these claims from Mr. Ryder flow from his overheated imagination and not from what actually happened in our processing of the bill and the strat plan and National Treasury's APP. Now, those insisting, Comrade Chair, that we don't apply the BBB laws during the lockdown are in fact denying the racial form of our class divides, and in fact contributing to racial polarization, especially if you think that of their tone-deaf, culturally insensitive, out of his depth statements of their little leader. And what the DA is effectively saying is, in effect, they're saying, end the lockdown restrictions. Who will suffer the most? The constituency of the ANC, the poor and the low-income earners. That's what's going to happen. And in fact, what we're doing is racializing it, this whole matter of BBB in a very crude way, in the way the DA is taking that to court. So the DA, actually in a time of the murder of George Floyd, when everybody's focusing on racism, is completely insensitive. Finally, look, if the Constitutional Court decides that there's something wrong in our application of BBBEE laws, we have to respect it as Parliament. We respect the judges. But it will not detract from the strong moral and political arguments that if COVID-19, as is a fact, is substantially and disproportionately affecting poor and low-income earners, it is towards them that any progressive government, as indeed ours is and our parliament is, should direct its finances. There's nothing wrong with that. We have been arguing, the president no less, that we need the private sector and big business. We're not going to be foolhardy and decide under no circumstances are they going to get funding. Now, Mr. Ryder talks about impossible dreams. The impossible dreams come from him and Mr. Outcome. They want to bring back the past in a modified form, yes. They're not racist in the way the apartheid system was, but the effect of their class preoccupation. What drives the DA on its position on the lockdown, particularly its leader? Mr. Ryder is more sober. Mr. Outcome comes across as more sober. But what is the DA actually saying? It is driven by the needs of its donors' interests. It cannot find the right balance between the economy and health considerations. There is no need to polarize it. We need to find the right and necessary balance is what we're saying as the ANC. We can't get it right. There's no abstract answer to it. We've got to edge our way towards it. Cabinet makes some mistakes and it doesn't. But finally, look, this is a democracy, as we all know. People have a right to express their views, as indeed does the DA. We're saying to them, yes, do so. Yes, disagree with us where it's necessary. But ultimately, despite our differences, you don't have to give up your political identities. You can work with us in the very challenging circumstances that we currently face. Let's work together despite all our differences. It's the country as a whole that we need to show loyalty, whether we're from the ANC or any other party. Never before have we faced such a crisis. Never before have we needed such unity. No one is asking the DA to give up its policies and its views. Mr. Fani Jutoya said similar things. I think that I covered him in a way. Mr. Maletsane, look, we largely support your approach to SOEs, bearing in mind that some SOEs we cannot fund. It's impossible. Only those with core service delivery, things like ESCOM and so on. Thank you, Chairman. It's a pity I can't finish the rest, but there we are. That's for now. Thank you indeed.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is Honorable T.T. Mboweni, Minister of Finance. Honorable Minister.
Good afternoon, members of the NCOP. And thank you very much for the opportunity to respond to the debate on the Appropriations Bill. I have listened very carefully to the debate, even though at times it was very difficult, given the interactions in the House. But I really would like, first of all, to thank Honorable Karim for his leadership of the committee, and also to thank Honorable Mahlangu for the role that she's played. I thank the leadership of all the political parties represented in the National Council of Provinces. We might come from different political parties, but nonetheless, we all share the desire for our country to be successful and for us to move ahead in resolving some of the difficulties that we face. On a day-to-day basis, we face major difficulties, but we forge ahead as fellow South Africans, determined to have the future in our hands to make sure that the present prepares very well for the future. If I might pause for a second, Madam Chair, and to wish President Mbeki a happy birthday. Today is his birthday, 78th birthday. We wish him well. And I recall all the years that we worked together from a very disastrous national financial situation to a point where we managed even to gain a budget surplus. And again, on this day, I'm with my friend and colleague, Trevor Manuel, as he mourns the passing away of his mother, and recall the days when we worked together to put South Africa's finances in order. Having said all of that, I'd like to reiterate a very important political framework for South Africa. That in 1955, our leadership got together in Kliptown and adopted the Freedom Charter. One of the fundamental principles of the Freedom Charter says the following: South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white, and no government shall claim authority unless if it is based on the will of all the people. I'll repeat, South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. This statement enjoins all of us at all times, at all material times, to ensure that we do whatever we need to do in order to forge this South Africa of our dreams, which belongs to all who live in it, black and white, and doing so fully aware of our history of race, class, and gender disparities, and aware that a large majority of our people was oppressed and exploited for many years. But having done that, we entered into a covenant when we signed the new constitution that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white, and that we shall do everything in our power to ensure that we work together, that we undo the injustices of the past, but forge ahead and not become new racists and not become past racists and not do anything that undermines the dictum that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. Having said all of that, once again, I would like to thank the members for their help and assistance. As you are aware, we'll be returning to the National Assembly on June 24th to submit a supplementary budget which takes into account the devastation brought onto us by COVID-19 against the background of an economy which was already in recession. And therefore, we need to make some very serious and unusual changes to the budget. But passing this budget enables us to spend within the law until such time that the supplementary budget has been passed. So I'd like to thank you very much, and I hope that on June 24, you'll be following us as we submit the supplementary budget. This, I say this with a very painful heart. The devastation in the economy has resulted in major tax revenue weaknesses. We are no longer in a position of tax collection that we were in February. We are no longer, as I said before, as rich as we thought we were. We are much, much poorer. And therefore, all of us have to adjust our expectations and also the way we think we can. We can no longer spend the way we were spending before. We can no longer do things which we had hoped to do before. The situation has radically changed, and therefore we need to refocus our attention and begin seriously to consider the zero-based budgeting system, which basically means that we start with clearly articulating our priorities and allocating funds according to our revenue base, avoid as much as possible borrowing to fund the gap, and live within our means. Why do I say this? Colleagues, honorable members, if we don't do this, by 2024, this country will be in a situation where the debt to GDP ratio higher than the GDP of the country. In simple technical economic terms, that means that we are going to be in a sovereign debt crisis. A sovereign debt crisis would mean that we are unable to fund our budget, and therefore we will be forced to go to the International Monetary Fund, will take over our country, slash the public service, slash pensions, and do all kinds of structural reform programs we do not want. A sovereign debt crisis is a very serious matter, and we're looking at it in the eye by 2024 if we do not redo our budget, if we do not manage our house finances carefully. And therefore, I hope that going forward, you'll work with me, you'll work with the president, and you'll work with the cabinet, work with all South Africans in the new direction where we prioritize those things that we can do, and we close those things that we cannot afford any longer, set our country on a new growth path, back to prosperity, and ensure that the future generations can live happily in our country. With that in mind, having said all of that, I thank you very much. I see the House Chair is there now. I see him. Thank you very much, House Chair. Thank you, Deputy Chair. Thank you, House Chair. Thank you, Chief Whip. And thank you all of you, honorable members from different political parties, for supporting us as we move along. I really thank you very much, and I'm done with my response. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable members, I would like to thank the Minister and special delegate for availing themselves for the debate. That concludes the business of the day. The House is adjourned. Thank you.
House Chair.
Bye-bye, PC.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye,
Thank
Okam.
you. Bye, Honorable Okam.
Don't be in trouble.
Olivia.
Bye, chocolate.
Bye, 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 bye.
Bye julle, ek is bly ons kon julle entertain vandag. Julle moet kom vir lesse, hoor.
Jy sê die trouble.
Honorable Lucas, ek sal jou maar bietjie skakel as ons praat.
The whole point is everybody is welcome, but they must just raise their hands according to the rules. Nobody can ask a question, but you cannot just jump in.
En julle moet nie so partydig is, die ou kamp het eers te begin.
Wat is hy eers te begin?